Hi everyone, I'm Jack. Welcome back to another video. Today what we're going to be talking about is flattening external effects. So you have external effects, you have something coming from your MPC that you want to apply them to, and you don't want to set it up every single time. Well, you don't have to. What you can do is you can get those effects set up the way you want, and you can pop them into your MPC and have them forever. So let's get to it. So the setup we have today, I've got my MPC 1. All I did was I started a brand new blank project. I went to the Funk Kit F9 Minneapolis and Hits. It was the first one I saw on the list. I figure why not? It's got kind of an interesting old school sort of style. And I've got my Korg New Tech NTS1. This is a cool little $100 device. They send it to you as a little kit. It takes like 5 minutes to put together. Aside from being a pretty neat little synth, it can make some cool sounds. I've got a user oscillator on here. No modulation, no delay, no reverb. It sounds pretty neat on its own. What I like to do is I like to use this thing as an effects rack. So what it can do, I've got my headphones jack coming out here, got it coming into the NTS1. The modulation, the delay, and the reverb will actually affect audio coming in if you want it to. And then I have that coming back out to my devices so I can record them. Now, you can do some pretty fun stuff here. You don't need the NTS1. Really anything you want to use that can apply effects, you can do this with. But I'm going to use this. Really what I'm doing here, the technique will apply to any external effects that you have. So keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our drum kit. You can see here, I've got a nice little kick here. Let's make this sound a little bit more interesting. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to come over here to my device. Now, if you are using NTS1 and really on any other devices where you can do this, is I'm going to set my dry wet signal. So how much of it is the signal going in and how much of it is the effects coming out. I'm going to set that to 100% wet. I don't want any of my dry signal coming out of this box. If you have some other external device that you're using, it's probably a good call. Otherwise, you're going to be doubling up on the sound you're feeding in, and it might end up sounding a little bit weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my delay. I'm going to turn it onto a delay. Let's just start with the tape delay so I can set this up. But if I hold that button and turn this, you can see it's either 100% dry all the way to 100% wet. We want that 100% wet. Do the same with the reverb. Just set it somewhere, and then hold that button. Now I'm going to turn this to the 100% wet. Now, whenever I have something coming in here, I'm not going to hear my sound coming out, just the effects will come out of this box. So let's get started. So we're going to add something here. If we go to this delay, let's see what we can do. That's pretty neat. It's kind of like some distortion, some compression going on there. Let's go to this reverb, add something there. That's an interesting reverb. We'll add some modulation. Now, just so you know with the NTS1, the modulation doesn't have a dry-wet ratio. It's gonna spit the dry out because really it is just modulating that dry signal. So keep that in mind. We can get something interesting out of that regardless though. So let's see what we can do here. All right, so we've added some modulation, some delay, and some reverb. This is a pretty interesting sound now. I like that, so I want to flatten that up. So what you're gonna do now is, essentially what we have is we have a sound on our MPC, and we have an effect that's really just going to our effects box. So you want that sound looping back into your device. I have that set up with my mixer over there, but that's important. Make sure you have that set up. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our sampler right here, and what you'll see here, so when you hit that pad, you're gonna hear that device. Now, the way I have this set up, if I go to input 2, really it's just feeding that sound back. You can see that here. Input 1 is where those wet effects are coming in. So I just wanna capture that. Now what you're gonna do is set the length to really however long you want. This is pretty short. Looks like I'd be pretty safe with 2 seconds. So if you've got your Q links on, you can actually come here and set the minutes. and you can set the seconds. I'm gonna set this to 3 seconds, why not? Pretty short, but make sure you do that. By the way, what I do here on my template is I have this set at 20 minutes, essentially. That's the max you can do because I never wanted to cut off my samples while I'm going. But that's a quick aside. So set up your length. You're gonna set your threshold. You don't want this too low. If I set this too low, what you'll see is that the second I hit arm, it's gonna start recording. You don't want that. So I'm gonna discard that and I'm gonna set my threshold to a little bit over where you see how it's kind of fluctuating right there. Set it a little bit above that. You don't wanna set it too high. If you do that, you're gonna lose some of that attack most likely. And so just set it barely above where it's fluctuating. Hit arm and then hit your pad. There we go. Now we're gonna name this whatever you want. I'm gonna go wet kick. So I know what I'm working with. Hit do it. And then what you can do is you can either hit keep or edit. Edit will take you to the edit page and keep it. I'm just gonna click keep. Now, here's where the magic's applied. You're gonna go to program edit. You're gonna go to samples and make sure you're on the pad that you want. I'm gonna turn my effects off here. That's the original sound. And then I'm gonna go to layer 2, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find that sound that we made and I'm gonna pop it onto layer 2. So if we do that, let's see, here's wet kick. Now if I play this sound, we've got our effects box off. You can see this makes no sound, but there's our sound. Now it's a little bit muted there. The reason for that is twofold. One thing you can do is you can go to sample edit and go to wet kick and go to process and you can go to normalize. Now that's gonna be a lot louder. So now if we play this pad, you can see that sounds pretty good. Now it doesn't sound as good as it did before. And the reason for that is I didn't change the input level when I recorded that sound. So let's go ahead and do this again. We're gonna go to sampler. We're gonna turn our effects rack back up. Ooh, that is kind of neat, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on none. So I just hear that normal dry sound of the pad that I want to apply the effect to. So turn my effects box back on. We're going to go to our sampler, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at the levels that show up when you play. So when I hit this, you can see that that's really low. That's like down near 35, minus 35. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go back here and you're going to find your input level and just turn that until it hits a level that you're comfortable with. So if I turn this, you can see I got that up to -9. I want that to be a little bit higher, so I'm gonna go over to my mixer and turn it up there until I can get this to roughly -6. I think that's a good place to be, so give me 1 second. All right, so we've done that. Now when I hit my pad, you can see that we're getting up to around -6 with our input. That's gonna be good. That's gonna let you get the effect sounding the way that you want. So now I'm gonna hit arm again. I'm gonna hit my pad, and I'm gonna let it record that sound. Now, just for fun, I'm gonna give this name here, Wet Kick 1. Let it do its thing. It's trying not to overwrite what it did before. That's fine. So we're gonna hit this pad. We're gonna put that on pad 5 still. We're gonna go to Program Edit. We're gonna go to Layer 2, and we're going to put Wet Kick 1 on there. Now, turn your effects box off, or else that's gonna get a little bit wild. You can see that sounds a little bit better. Once again, you're probably going to go to sample edit and you're probably still going to want to normalize this. So we're going to normalize that. Now this is what our pad sounds like. Right? If we turn that layer 2 off and listen to our original, pretty different. So now that I've got this the way that I want it to sound, what I'm going to do to make sure I can keep this is I'm going to flatten the pad. You can see this arrow up here. Click that arrow and then give it a name that you want. Let's give this Space Growl Kick. I like to put what it is in the name so that I know what I'm working with, right? So this is gonna be Kick Space Growl. Give it a fun name, something you think you'll remember, and then hit do it. It's gonna take a second. Now, when we look at our pad, we've got it flattened right here. So there's our Space Growl. So that lives in this program now. What you want to do most likely is have access to that wherever you want. So whatever project you want to play it in. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to main. You're going to go here to your drum program and you're going to hit that pencil. And now what you can do is you can save your current sample. So we're gonna click Save Current Sample. You might wanna have a folder in your samples or one-shots folder that is just where your samples live. For me, I've got that in my samples folder, Jack Samples, and I'm gonna put that in my kicks folder right here. So kick, space growl, save. Now I can use that wherever I want, whatever project I want. Now, that is for external effects. I think that's a really fun way to use this. A lot of the times, especially with a device like this, the NTS1 is going to reset every single time you turn it on. So if you get some settings that you like, you really want to kind of be able to reproduce that without having to fiddle around every single time. So I just sample that back into my MPC, pop it on the pad, flatten it, and save it, and now that kick is mine. I can use it whenever I want. I don't have to reproduce it. I think that's a really powerful thing that the MPC can do. Now, even better, another thing you can do is you can actually save up some memory in this device, so you can save cool things that you've made for later use. Now, what I mean by that, let's take this kick here. Actually, let's take this clap. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this clap and I'm gonna make it sound completely different using the internal effects. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. And that can do two things. It can save a pad or a sound for other projects, but it can also clear up memory and clear up processing power for the MPC-1 for other things. So let's go ahead and do that. Got this clap, I'm gonna go to Program, Edit, and I'm gonna start having some fun. First thing I like to do is just play with the semi and the fine tune. You can get some really wild stuff if you go to the extremes, mostly the low extremes, honestly. You'll see if we go way up, it just starts sounding almost like a hi-hat or something. Almost like an explosion at the low extreme. But I'm gonna just find something that I like, something fun. It's almost like a gunshot, I like that. So let's play with the fine just to make sure it's exactly what I want. Not really much I want to do there. All right, what else might I want to do? Envelopes. This has such a nice attack. It's such a nice transient at the front that I don't think I want to really do much here, but let's just play around, see what it ends up sounding like. Gives it a little bit more of a snap. All right, what else do we have? Let's go to, now I'm gonna leave the filter alone. We might have some fun with pitch. Let's go ahead and do that. Once again, my trick here is I click on depth, because then this knob is gonna change the depth of this pitch envelope, and these cue links are gonna change the parameters. So what do I want here? I want it to start high and maybe lower its pitch as it goes. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to AHDS again. Let's put the sustain all the way down, and we're going to drag the delay out a bit. So to do that, I'm going to turn the depth down to a negative number, and then I'm going to leave the attack nice, and actually I'm going to back the attack off. I'm going to bring the sustain all the way back up. I want that high pitch part to last throughout the beginning and then quickly ramp up. So let's see if we can do that. That's not bad. And then just for fun, we'll go to our last page and see if we can add any cool effects here. All right, I like the bass E wide. It adds kind of like that thump that you get if you're actually near a gunshot. And then I think we'll do a soft clip just to give it a little bit more punch. By the way, I've started doing this. I like to start on the front because really the way this page works is it applies everything in sequence. You see there are numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's applying these effects in sequence. And so this way, once I start adding new things later, let's say I've added effects to slot 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I want to add new things. Well, anything I add is going to be prior to those effects. So it's going to change things in ways I might not expect. So if I do it this way, it just kind of works better. The gain I still leave on the end because that's just kind of cleaning things up. All right, so now we've turned that clap sound into more of a gunshot sound. And so we've used a lot of effects here. We've done some envelopes. And what this is going to do is it's going to start using some of that memory and CPU. Not much here, but it can really start adding up. And so what you can do now is you can go here to this flatten page. You can hit that flatten button. We're gonna call this shots. Once again, add what it is. This is almost like, I'd use this maybe as a snare now. So I'm gonna say snare shots for my name. We're gonna hit do it. It's gonna flatten that pad. It's gonna add it to that layer. Now you can see that living on that pad is our snare shots. Now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go to main, we're gonna go to the pencil, we're gonna say save current sample. Make sure the last pad you hit was that one that you wanna save, but you'll see here, the file name is gonna show you which one you're doing. And just save it in your spot. So I'm already in my sample folder, so I'm gonna go to my snares. I'm gonna go ahead and add that right there. Now I have both of those. I can use them whenever I want for whatever project I want. And I don't have to use up any of my memory or any of my effects. Let's say I want to add 4 more effects, or let's say I've filled up all of my insert effects in the sound. Well, flatten it, pop it back in, and then add 4 more insert effects. Go wild. It's kind of a fun way to go above the limitations of the device, right? You've got 4 insert effects for any sound. So if you've hit that limit and you still want to do more with your sound, just flatten it out, save it, and now you can apply 4 more insert effects. Same with external effects. If you've got something that took a while to set up, you want to save it, or let's say it's something you're not going to be able to easily get back, just go to your sampler, sample it in, put it on that pad and flatten it, save it, and now you have that once again for any project. So that's why I think this flatten button, a lot of people I think probably ignore this. It's just an arrow on one page, but I think this is an incredibly powerful thing. So have some fun with it, make some cool sounds, flatten them up, add more effects, kind of go wild. I think this is a really powerful button. That's one cool thing you can do with flatten. You can actually do a lot more. There's other things you can do that I think are pretty interesting. For example, let's say we took this snare sound. What we could do is, let's say, crank this all the way down to -36 semitones. We get that wild sound. Now if we flatten this, what we can do is we can actually go 36 semitones lower. Now we've got this kind of low background growl that lasts forever, which can be kind of neat. You can add texture to sounds. Sometimes if you take really high pitched sounds like hi-hats, you can get some really interesting things out of this. So let's just try that. Yeah, that's a nice short hi-hat. Let's go ahead and see what happens here. Interesting. So we'll go ahead and flatten that. There, we've called that flat hat. Now let's go ahead and turn that down 36 semitones. See what comes out of it. Now it's kind of like a digital impact sound, right? Pretty neat. I like that. It could be good kind of like as a background sound. Or maybe if you're just making a video for some sound effects, could be nice there too. But you can see that this flattened pad can be a very interesting way to get more out of the MPC One than you might at first think you can. 36 is that lower limit or upper limit for how far you can go in the semitones. But if you flatten the pads, you can then just keep on going. There's really not a limit to how low you can go. So that's flattened pads. If there's anything else you like to do with flattened pads, let us know down in the comments. Once again, very powerful. I think this is a really neat thing that's in the MPC One that probably gets underutilized in most people's workflow. So with that, have a nice day, make some good beats, and enjoy your music creation. Bye.